a lot of the speakers we get here are international people, and we start off with a background of how they got to Korea. But we know how you got to Korea, but can you maybe tell us a little bit more about what happened with you between high school and where you are now? Where did you go to university, and what did you study?
I went to Korea University, and by the time I entered university, I was kind of actually planning to major in English because that was my main focus. But I took some sample classes, and the classes that I took in the English language and literature department were classes like Shakespeare, T.S. Eliot, poetry, and things like that. And I really had to ask myself, do I really want to contribute to the development to the English literature? And the answer was no. So I wanted to try something new. So that was the major reason. So I switched departments, and I couldn't switch to the law department or engineering, so I chose another language, which was French. So I majored in French at Korea University.
Okay. And so what did you do, what jobs were you doing before you decided to talk to me in Korean, what you do for money?
Yeah, I taught a lot of private lessons when I was in university to earn money for hasukjip and food and transportation. And also I did a lot of translation, and I worked at a publishing company for 3 years, on and off. Yeah.
Okay, and as far as your education before you got to university and high school, you mentioned that you didn't start intensively studying Korean until high school. So I think, I'm sorry, talking to me, okay, right? So I think many of the people here in the audience today have had the experience of teaching at or attending Hagwon. So were you not a person who attended Hagwon while you were in school?
I tried attending a Hagwon. I went for a couple of weeks, just couldn't stand it. Back then, I think right now a lot of people are really qualified teachers, but back then, 16 years ago, not many people were really trying to be good teachers in Korea. So it was, I think, easier for anybody to become a teacher. Like whoever spoke English could teach at Hagwon anywhere. So my teachers were really bad, and I didn't learn anything. So I went back home and told my mom, "Mom, you just wasted some money." So I never went back.
Okay. So you obviously have achieved a high level of proficiency in English. What do you think the factors are? What would you attribute to your success with English? Do you think that you have some sort of innate special language ability, or what can you share with the audience?
Okay, whenever I tell people I have no special talent in language learning, they just laugh at me. So I won't lie. One thing that I can do better than other people, there's one thing, only one thing. It's distinguishing sounds. So if you give me one line, like a short line in a very foreign language that I know nothing about, I can mimic that sound quite easily. But I have a very bad memory at the same time. So if you ask me the same thing, ask me to repeat the same thing without telling me, 10 minutes later, I would have forgotten it. So no advantage whatsoever. So what I did was I recorded myself to the point where I hated my voice. I hated my face even when I started recording with video cameras, because after I started recording with video cameras, I realized for the first time that my face is not perfectly balanced. Nobody's face is perfectly balanced. So like all these little details about your face, all these little details about your speaking habits, kind of suddenly stand out. So I recorded my voice to the point where I really hated myself. And I listened to my voice and tried to pick out all the differences between my pronunciation, my intonation, and that of a native speaker. That's the only thing that I did, I think, differentiates.
And that's a very specific thing. Can you tell us what a typical week was like for you when you were studying English, as far as schedule and study methods?
Okay, in high school, I think I spent at least 4 hours a day studying English, which is easy for students. right? If it's for someone who is working really hard, it might be difficult, but it was easy for me to spend 4 hours a day. And what I did was after school or during other subjects, other classes, during math classes, I would spend half of the time looking up my Korean English dictionary. So if you're learning Korean, you would be doing the opposite. So I would look around things, and that's 천장. So what is 천장 in English? I would look it up, and it's ceiling. And I would go to my English dictionary and look up ceiling, and there's a definition of the ceiling, and I would read it. And whenever there's a new word that I don't know, I would just kind of look it up again. So I would just keep trying to quench my thirst for new words. So I look up new words and kind of write a lot. And whenever I am stuck, so I want to write 너무 기대돼요. How do I say 기대돼요 in English? I look it up, and I'm looking forward to something. So I write it. So I keep asking myself with the dictionary how to say something.
Now, I think that many foreign teachers, English teachers here in Korea, find part of the difficulty is that for many Korean students, they view English as another academic subject. They study for the test, and then after the test has been passed, they forget it. But you mentioned that you looked at language as a tool for communication. What do you think can be done to change the mindset towards English education in Korea?
That's a very good question. I cannot stress this enough. For example, this Korean cultural aspect of 오빠, 형, 누나, 언니. Like you always determine what language, what politeness level to use, or how to behave around people. So that is a really beautiful part of our Korean culture, but I think it sadly applies to learning languages too. So for example, if there's person A, person B, this person has a slightly better pronunciation than this person B, this person feels something similar to what they feel when they are around a hyung. They feel inferior. They feel that this person is superior. And that doesn't change. The relationship, once it's set, it doesn't change often. So what I did was to try to break it. I don't care whether someone speaks better English. He's not my hyung. He's not my nuna. We're just equal. Of course, I would be polite to them, but in terms of speaking the language, you speak English, I speak English too. You just speak it better. It doesn't matter how better you speak it. So that was my attitude. So I think no one can change it for you, for the students. You have to just break it. So I think if you ask in other countries, for example in Belgium, if you ask two Belgian people learning Japanese, and this person is much better than this other person in Japanese, they will probably both say, oh, he speaks Japanese and I speak Japanese too. And if you ask the same question to two Korean people, 얘가 더 잘해요. So please break that stereotypical idea. Yeah.
So that involves a fundamental shift in attitude, but is there anything that you would like to see happen as far as educational reform in Korea?
Educational reform, I think it's a very heavy topic, but it's actually the role of teachers. Teachers should, if there are ways to evaluate students in more ways than just one result, like you get 100 points, you get 50 points, so you're better, you're worse. Rather than that, if there are evaluation methods like your pronunciation is good, like in audition programs these days, they evaluate people on different criteria, different areas. So your pronunciation is good, but your gesture is more American, your gesture is more British, something like that. So I think it's important to come up with more evaluation types.
Moving on to your website, Talk to Me in Korean. What were your startup costs like, and how were you able to get the funds to start your business?
I see. So luckily I was familiar with website building and all these other tools that you had to master how to use. So it didn't cost me or my co-founders a lot of money to begin with, because we knew we were wise enough to just buy our own equipment than to rent studio rooms like every single time, because they would cost 10 times more. So we bought this $300 voice recorder with 5만 원, like 50,000 won, microphones so that the podcasts, high quality podcasts that we've been producing come from a total of maybe $500 worth of equipment. So that wasn't much, and computers, we didn't need fancy computers. So I think our startup cost was around $3,000. So that's nothing compared to other companies. Yeah.
Moving away from your business for a second and back to the language exchange that you mentioned occurs still every week. What do you think made your language exchange successful? And do you think that it could be revived in a city like Gwangju? Or is the nature of this city where so many people eventually go to Seoul make it difficult to sustain it here?
I see. I believe, to answer the second question first, I believe it is possible. It has been occurring in other cities as well, Busan, Daegu, and other smaller cities in other countries as well. So it is possible, as long as there is someone who can, be a permanent member, and then even if that person leaves, there should be another member who can actually take care of it. Just like GIC, how GIC has new members coming, but it's maintaining itself really well. And the reason I think it is popular is because we don't charge anything. Other meetups, they are operated for the purpose of revenue, as you know. It's not a bad thing. It's their business model, but to do that, they have to charge more and more. They have to talk about rental fees and stuff. So we don't have to worry about that. So I guess that's why we're more welcoming. And there's no special program. We don't have to promote it as girls. I mean, free for girls, or free for foreigners. All these international parties that are promoting it that way. Yeah.
Okay. You did mention that you didn't want to go into the day-to-day details of your working, such as what you have for lunch.
Yeah.
But can you give us an idea of what a typical workday is like for you at Talk to Me in Korean?
Sure. Yeah. So since I basically wanted to be a cool boss, and I wanted to keep the atmosphere really flexible. It would be nonsense if I made the atmosphere really harsh, really stressful, and then talk to the world saying, "Happy learning Korean." It would be ironical. So we want to keep the atmosphere flexible, so anybody can come in at any time. So flexible working hours, as long as you do 8 hours of work. So if you come in at 8, you can leave at 4, or if you come in at noon, you can leave at 8 or something like that. Very flexible, as long as the work is done. And we use a service, an online service that helps you keep track of projects. Very cheap and very good. We pay like $10 a month to use that service. And we use that platform to talk to everybody. So I don't go to this coworker's desk and, hey, do this. I write a task and send it to her online, and everybody can see it. And if something has to be done by someone else, I tag someone, just like on Facebook. So that's what we do, how we do the work. And probably once a day or once every 2 days, we record a bunch of video lessons, audio books. Like we get together to do some meetings for ebooks and stuff like that. So yeah, very, very flexible.
A few more questions here. Let's go back to the fact that you've studied so many languages. Can you talk about some of the other languages that you've studied? What are some of your favorites, any less favorite, and also your travels that have been facilitated by your language study? What are some of your favorite travels?
My favorite language so far is, of course, apart from Korean, Korean is my favorite. It's the easiest for me. And English, I guess. English is the first foreign language that I learned, so I have the biggest love for English. But after that, I think it's Japanese, because it's so similar to Korean. It didn't take me more than a year and a half before I became really fluent in Japanese. So Japanese is definitely something that I always enjoy learning, especially because I can discover new words just by watching something. I don't have to study it. You spot the similarity, and then okay, that must be how to say that in Japanese. So for example, we're talking a lot about the U.S. government these days, right? So government is 정부, and in Japanese it's 세후. So you see the similarity, you know. So okay, 정 must be 세 in Japanese, and when you see another word that has 정 somewhere, and if it's the same character, you say 세, and it's always correct. So that's my favorite languages. Also, my trips. I think I don't know. I don't think we can talk about everything about my trips, but speaking these foreign languages have actually facilitated my trips immensely because I can talk to local people. And before getting married, I used to travel a lot by myself, and then I would make a lot of friends, you know, on the go. So that was really, really awesome experience.
You said you believe that anything is possible. You alluded to something big on the horizon and said you can't spoil the surprise. But can you give us some further insight into what's next on the horizon?
So basically, spill the beans without actually...
Without spilling beans, yes.
I don't have any beans on me, so... yeah, the next step, I can't mention the details, but it has to do with some place.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cryptic.
Yeah. Some place.
And
offline.
Is there any language that you have next that you would like to learn, or are you content with the languages you know now?
I think the language, my least favorite language so far has to be German. Not because it's difficult. I've studied it for a week and I know it's not difficult. You know, I believe every language in the world has kind of evolved in a way that it is in the most perfect status right now. So nothing is difficult. But German, I had no motivation whatsoever for learning, especially because Germans all speak English so well that I never felt the need to learn it. They even speak French better than me. So I didn't feel the need, but I went to Berlin 3 weeks ago, and I realized that that is not true. It was all the German people traveling to Korea that spoke excellent English and French. All these older people, they spoke no English, no French. So I was kind of frustrated when I couldn't talk to these people. So next on the list is German.
Okay. We have one final question for today's Q&A. His presentation generated a lot of questions, and unfortunately we didn't have time to ask them all. So if your question was not answered, please feel free to approach the speaker directly after the talk. So someone in the audience wants to know the perfect candidate.
I see. In fact, thankfully, very thankfully, we get this question very often. It means a lot to us. So thank you once again, whoever it is. So. I guess it is possible. Yeah, we're not hiring right now, but after we deal with the project that I mentioned, after we're done with it, I guess we will make an announcement on the website. For the reference, the last time we hired someone, we asked the candidates to make their application through YouTube, so that we know what the personality of the person is like, what the person looks like, what the person talks like, stuff like that. So yeah, basically what we asked was just convince us that we need to hire you. So that is the only way that we hire. So maybe when we make an announcement next time, please convince me, and hopefully we can work together.
Okay, let's thank the speaker one more time for